Global power behaves like a biological lung. Empty space on a map doesn't stay empty, it is quickly consumed by expanding forces. For the last 2,000 years, the Earth has constantly inhaled and exhaled empires. In the 1st century AD, the Mediterranean basin was completely engulfed by the Roman Empire. The physical weight of their economy fueled an unyielding military machine that monopolized the entire region, with the city of Rome at its absolute center. By the 2nd century, Emperor Trajan pushed Roman borders to their absolute physical limits. His legions marched from the damp coasts of England to the deserts of Iraq, securing the empire's maximum geographic footprint. While Rome dominated the West, the East held equal weight. The Han Dynasty in China commanded roughly 5 million square kilometers, mirroring Rome's massive scale, while the Sassanid Empire eventually consolidated power in Iran to directly challenge Roman borders. The ancient world maintained a tense stability because of this geographic equilibrium. Global power hung perfectly suspended between the Mediterranean legions in the West and the sprawling dynasties of the Asian East. That balance shattered in the 4th century. Rome fractured into two halves, shifting its center of gravity eastward to the Byzantine Empire in Constantinople, while the Sassanids and India's Gupta Empire entered massive periods of military and cultural dominance. A shockwave erupted from Central Asia. Under Attila, the Huns carved a domain from the Caucasus to Germany. When he died, that territory collapsed. This vacuum pulled Germanic tribes across the Western Roman Empire's borders, dismantling it, while Byzantine and Sassanid borders held firm. The collapse of Rome's western half forced a hard reset on global civilization. The ancient era expired in the ruins of Italy, and the chaotic centuries of the Middle Ages officially began. Power centralized entirely in the East by the 6th century. The Byzantine Empire resurged under Emperor Justinian, building massive architectural marvels to project dominance, while locking into a grueling, decades-long war of attrition with their Sassanid neighbors. In the 7th century, a completely new force emerged from the Arabian Peninsula. Islam rapidly united the nomadic tribes, and the resulting military campaigns utterly erased the Sassanid Empire and severed massive, crucial territories from the Byzantines. Within a century, the Umayyad Caliphate ballooned into a transcontinental titan. Under leaders like Hisham ibn Abdul Malik, their armies commanded a continuous, unbroken stretch of land from the borders of India all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. The geopolitical epicenter shifted again in the 9th century as the opposites established their massive capital in Baghdad. Aside from the Carolingian Empire in Europe and Tang China to the east, the Abbasids operated virtually unchallenged. For hundreds of years, the world's wealth, scientific advancement, and military innovation concentrated squarely in the east. European kingdoms remained fractured and localized, while Asian and Middle Eastern courts dictated the pace of human progress. The immense size of the Islamic Empire eventually caused it to splinter. Between the 10th and 12th centuries, the unified Abbasid domain broke apart, replaced by competing regional powers, like the Turkic Seljuks, the Fatimids in Egypt, and the Ayyubids. In the 13th century, Genghis Khan weaponized the nomadic horse archers of the Asian steppes. He welded the Mongol tribes together and drove them outward, ruthlessly carving out the largest contiguous land empire in recorded history. Like the Huns before them, the Mongol superpower fractured rapidly. By the 14th century, their vast territory dissolved into distinct pieces, including the Islamic Ilkhanate in Persia, paving the way for the Central Asian conqueror Timur Lenk to build a new empire from Samarkand. The brutal churn of massive Eastern empires culminated in 1453. Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror led Ottoman forces through the ancient walls of Constantinople, snuffing out the last remnants of the Byzantine state and renaming the city Istanbul. Millennia of continuous warfare across the Asian continent had forged incredibly efficient military machines. The fall of Constantinople finalized the end of the Middle Ages, leaving the Ottomans holding the absolute center of the world map. In the 16th century, dominant Islamic states like the Ottoman, Safavid, and Mughal empires peaked on land. But at the exact same time, coastal nations like Portugal and Spain bypassed the traditional land routes by turning the open oceans into transcontinental highways. Spanish galleons crossed the Atlantic, conquered indigenous populations, and began extracting staggering amounts of physical wealth from the Americas. This sudden injection of resources permanently tipped the global balance of power away from the East and directly into Western Europe. European supremacy accelerated through the 17th century. As Spanish dominance wanes, France mobilized massive armies under King Louis XIV, centralizing power and establishing the French state as the premier military force on the continent. To the east, Russia underwent a massive expansion of its own. During the 18th century, leaders like Peter and Catherine the Great pushed their borders aggressively across the frozen expanse of Siberia, creating a sprawling transcontinental giant. The rules of global dominance had permanently flipped. Controlling the Central Asian steppes or the Middle Eastern deserts no longer guaranteed supremacy. Ultimate power now belonged to those who could project force across the oceans. Britain weaponized its island geography to dominate the 19th century. By combining early industrialization with absolute naval supremacy, the British established an immense colonial network that extracted resources from every single continent. But the industrial mechanics that built European empires eventually destroyed them. The mechanized slaughter of 2 world wars bankrupted the colonial powers and violently shattered Britain's grip on the globe. From the ashes of 1945, the planet fractured down the middle. Geopolitics locked into a tense standoff between 2 entirely new, ideologically opposed lungs, the United States in the West and the Soviet Union in the East. That bipolar freeze held until the late 20th century. The Soviet Union's sudden collapse removed the Eastern counterweight, leaving the United States standing alone as the undisputed unipolar superpower. Today, American global dominance feels absolute and permanent, but looking at 2,000 years of relentless expansion, conquest, and collapse reveals a different reality. The map is never finished. It is simply holding its breath.